So I have a question for you. Do you feel like you're putting your life on hold waiting for your loved one to resolve their substance abuse problem? I know I did this for years and years. So if this sounds like you, I have a story for you. Hello, I'm Madeline Craig, family addiction educator and life coach, and I'm here to help you reclaim your life from the chaos of your loved one's use. And this is another episode of Hope for Families TV. So, about 20 years ago, when I was early in my recovery from family addiction, I reached out to my sponsor for support around some awful thing my mother had done. Side note, I know very well that 12-step recovery is not for everyone, and I'm not trying to endorse that here. It just happens to be part of my story, so I'm sharing about it in that light. At any rate, what I was calling my sponsor about was something my mother had done some version of a million times before, and I continued to just get totally rocked by it again and again and again. And my sponsor saw that even though I'd been in this support program for a while, I was still stuck, essentially thinking my life was over unless my mother changed. And she said something to me I will never forget. She said, "Madeline, your mother has the right not to recover." And honestly, my first reaction to that was like, was she talking about wuss? And I know that reference is going to age me there, so if you didn't get that, you'll just have to look up the show Different Strokes. But suffice it to say, I was absolutely, totally flabbergasted. Like, how could she possibly make such a claim? But just like a cancer patient has the right to refuse chemo, an addicted person also has the right to refuse treatment for better or for worse. And of course, they also have the right to the consequences of that decision. Now, I know you might be confused to hear me say this because a big part of what I help families do is to learn how to have a positive influence on the substance use, because your loved one does not exist in a vacuum. You are able to influence them, and doing that in a positive way does improve outcomes. And I'm not trying to walk that back in this video. But part of having a positive influence on your loved one's use is to live your own life to the best of your ability, whether they're using or not. And feeling like you have to wait for them to recover before you can live your life doesn't actually help anything. In fact, it does the opposite. And this is what the thing my sponsor said helped me understand. So let me explain how that works. One of the things that drives continued substance abuse is shame. Now, shame may or may not have been part of what started the use, but it is definitely what drives continued use in spite of all the problems it causes. Because whether your loved one admits it or not, they are deeply ashamed of their use and of the things their use drives them to do. They are, I promise, no matter what they say. And they continue to use because the use gives them a momentary reprieve from that shame. Now, it's not helpful to act like their behavior is okay, but one of the ways you can genuinely help them with the shame without pretending their behavior is okay is to live your life to the best of your ability. It not only helps you better weather this scary and chaotic journey, it also relieves your loved one of the fear and the shame that they're totally ruining your life. So that's one important thing you could do. And I'd love to know what's one very teeny tiny way you can start to reclaim your life. How can you get it back? Can you go back to your book club? Can you call a friend you haven't talked to in a long time? Can you get back out on the golf course with your friends? Even if you only did one little thing once a month, it would make a difference. So feel free to share in the comments one small thing you could do. But before we wrap up this episode, I also want to address one more thing that I suspect you might be thinking. Maybe you're feeling like living your own life means that you don't care what your loved one is struggling with, or that you don't care what happens to them, or that you don't take the severity of the problem seriously. Not at all. You can live your life and still care. You can live your life and fully understand what's at stake. A loved one's struggle with substances is a completely horrific journey to have to navigate. It's full of grief and fear, and there's no way around that, even if you do live your life to the best of your ability. And if your loved one doesn't recover, or God forbid, loses their life to the substance, your heart is absolutely going to break, and I am not pretending it's not. But the only way to navigate this journey with your psyche relatively intact is to create space for your own life too. It's not easy, and I don't claim to have done that perfectly at all myself. It was very up and down all the time for me. Every step of the way, I've had to grieve for the mother I never had. And my mother actually passed a little over a year ago, so then I had to grieve for the mother I never would. But through my own recovery journey, which included living my life to the best of my ability, some days well, some days not so well, I discovered that yes, my heart was broken over my mother, but there was so much more that my heart could hold. A number of years ago, I was working at a family recovery program, and I told the story of how my sponsor insisted upon me all those years ago that my mother had the right not to recover. And after that session, a mother came up to me and shared that she'd been putting her life and all the things she wanted to do on hold for years, waiting for her son to recover. And she didn't realize that she had permission to live anyway. But she did. And she thanked me for making her realize that. You too have permission to live anyway. Not because you don't care, but because you do. And just because we are experiencing this kind of really heavy problem that we didn't choose, doesn't mean that we can't still choose moments of joy where we can. Because we have to care about ourselves too, if we want to have a positive influence on the problem. Our lives, our psyches, our emotions hold multitudes, and making whatever room we can for all of it will help both us and our loved ones. Thanks for watching.